There's so much to talk about. The subject of your book is a story in and of herself, but first I want to talk about you. You're from Rochester, and you really became a voice after you had applied to become a page with a lawmaker, and that person said, I'm sorry, you can't.
Senator Jacob Javits said that he would have loved to have me as a page in the U.S. Senate, but that women were not allowed, girls were not allowed to be pages at that time. And at the time, I thought, that's strange, but it didn't get to my gut until I came to Rochester after graduating from the Cornell School of Labor Relations, and I was the first female in that field, and I couldn't have lunch with my male colleagues because they would eat at men's only grills at the Manhattan or at Sibley's, and a woman was not allowed in there. And I just, this is not right. There is something fundamentally wrong here. And that was the time of the second wave of awareness among women for women's rights, and how appropriate in Rochester to have that awakening.
Where did you take it from there? So now you have this full recognition that something is wrong. What did you decide to do about it?
I, with other people, both men and women, joined the local chapter of the National Organization for Women, and we began to say, the law is on our side. So a whole group of us decided that we were basically going to have an eat-in. And we did bring the media with us and insisted on being served. And that began to change what had just been the accepted discriminatory status quo. And then a number of us were ambitious young women, and we saw that the Rochester JCs was the youngest, the way for young people to demonstrate leadership skills and to hone them. And unfortunately, it was for young men under 36. And at the time, because of the field I was in, I knew that there was a federal executive order that mandated that large corporations with big government contracts could not discriminate on gender. So we pointed out to the leadership of the JCs that it would be a shame if their chapter, which was the largest in the world, underwritten by Bausch & Lomb and Kodak and Xerox and the like, found out that they were jeopardizing their government contracts. They ended up changing their bylaws with the support of people like Senator Javits and the like, and the Rochester Chamber. But the problem was that the USJCs threw the Rochester chapter out. That it ended up being appealed, and cases like it also went before the Supreme Court. And today, the Kiwanis, the Rotaries, the JCs all admit women as full members.
How did you find out about Martha Matilda Harper?
By chance. At the time, First National Bank was the new owner of the Powers building, and they were renovating the building. They hired my consulting firm to help them attract the public interest in the grand opening. And since I knew that everyone had a story linked to that building, I suggested that we create a history gallery and ask the public just to share stories, memorabilia, photographs linked to the building. One of the artifacts that was shared was a little clipping that said the first beauty salon in Rochester was created by Martha Matilda Harper, who ended up being the first member of the Chamber of Commerce. I called the chamber. I was intrigued. I'm a businesswoman. I'm in fact president of the Small Business Council of the Chamber, and say, hi, Wyoma Best. tell me more about who this first woman chamber member was. She comes back and says, we are clueless, but when you find out, let me know. Well, that's really the wrong thing to say to me. So I thought, I am going to find out, only I couldn't. I mean, I looked at the local library references and I really couldn't find out anything more. But I was on an assignment that took me to Washington, D.C. I went to the Library of Congress and embraced a librarian and said, help me find something out about her. And he spent 2 hours, and she wasn't to be found, except he did find that there was a New York Times obituary in 1950, 2 columns about Martha Matilda Harper. And in it, it talks about her with this worldwide empire, with franchising as the pioneer, Susan B. Anthony and British royalty all being her customers. And I'm reading this and thinking, wow, somebody should write her story, but I was a businesswoman. I was not a historian at that time. But it was as though she nestled in my little brain or my heart or both, and I couldn't get her out of my head because I kept saying, if it was that hard for me to find that little out, who the heck is ever going to find out about her? So I thought, what the heck? So I started to try to research her, and what I thought would take 6 months took 6 years. Because so little, unfortunately, was recorded that it took traveling across the United States and Canada and contacting family members, but also part of that devoted Harper network of people who had worked for her. And turned out that one of the owners of the Harper shop here in Rochester, who had left for Wisconsin, had also preserved 35 cartons of artifacts after the Harper Empire was sold in 1972. So when I reached Betty Wheeler in Wisconsin and said, I'm interested in telling her story, she said, what took you so long? She still had those cartons that she had saved. And I don't know if you've ever moved, but it's remarkable that she didn't dump the stuff.
Remarkable. So you write the biography of Martha Matilda Harper. Not only was she an entrepreneur, she had a salon that catered to royalty, celebrities. She then pioneered modern franchising. All of this after a third of her life was in indentured servitude.
Exactly.
Remarkable.
Exactly. So what we know is that she represents inspiration for anyone. Male, female, immigrant, native, who has a dream and pursues it. And as you suggested, it took her 25 years to overcome her servitude. But she was clever enough to be able to capitalize on the asset of having been a servant. And by that I mean, if you are a servant for that long, you really know how to please people. And you understand that that's your job. So when she goes into this new business of opening a beauty salon for women, number one was, I have to delight the customer. Well, if you're going to go into a business that involves washing hair, she realized she had to make sure they didn't get soap in their eyes or that she didn't mess their finery. So she invents the reclining shampoo chair. All of this seems incredible, but I think it's because she was a servant and she starts thinking logically of what are the steps in order to delight them. Well, that reclining shampoo chair that all of us use today sure works. And it was like Wegmans today. You out-of-town people had to be taken to the Harper shop because this was something to experience.
And what does it say that someone so revolutionary with such a tremendous story didn't have a lot of literature about her?
What it says is that history is written by those in power. And if in general historians or business leaders are men, then they're going to focus on the story. The BBC recently did a story about Ray Kroc and McDonald's and saying that he was really the catalyst to franchising. Now at the very end of the story, they say, well, it is true that Martha Matilda Harper, 70 years ahead of Kroc, had invented this system and had 500 shops around the world, but the world didn't follow. Therefore, Ray Kroc should deserve the credit. And it's like, no, wait a minute. If someone invents a vaccine and the world is foolish enough not to use it, does that mean that the person who invented the vaccine isn't the creator? So I think, unfortunately, that's what it's going to take, is that people begin to look around and say, whose stories have we missed?
Yeah, welcome to my mission. The reason you're in town right now is because of a very special project.
Yes, ARTA, which is a German and French PBS equivalent of a broadcast station, came across my book. And they decided that the French and the German folks need to know about her story on a program called Invitation to Travel. And they focus in on unique stories around the world, encouraging Europeans to visit. So Rochester and Martha Matilda Harper are the site, and yesterday the ARTA film crew arrived and we traveled the steps that Martha took coming in across Lake Ontario and by the port, and we waved to the Charlotte Genesee Lighthouse, and then we came down by High Falls and the Powers Building and the headquarters on East Main, and then at the Rochester Museum and Science Center, so that they could document the wonderful story of Martha Matilda Harper.
How exciting.
It is. What's really interesting is, so I was taped, but I understand that all my words will be dubbed in French and German. So I won't be able to understand.
You'll be multilingual to the rest of the world.
Exactly.
Well, congratulations on all the success, and thank you for finding an untold story and telling it.
Thank you.